Hello, everybody. It's Lee, and with this is Legal Advice. And I want to talk to you about narcissism today with our special guest expert, Susan Ball. And this is my co-host, Allison Reiner. And Allison's platform is about love. Allison, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll introduce Susan.
Perfect. This is not legal advice.
Right.
I'm Alison Reiner. I'm a loved again and forever coach, and that means I work with women who are questioning whether they want to stay married or not. And together we take a journey inwards and come to whatever conclusion you want, and then we create a path towards your vision, towards your final outcome, if you like. So that's a little bit about me. I'll talk a bit more about me as we go on through the interview. But over to you, Susan. Tell us a bit about you. What do you do?
Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I am a women's freedom coach and self-love activist, and I work with women who are in ugly, toxic, abusive relationships to help them see that and to get clear about leaving and rebuilding themselves and their lives and really jacking up their personal value so it doesn't happen to them again.
Yeah, and I am a divorce lawyer and the creator of Project Positive Change. And I started This Is Not Legal Advice because I give so much advice in my office that's not legal advice. And I always have a little preface so they know, one, that they're off the clock. I'm not charging them for all of my colloquialisms or whatever. And two, that this is not something that I'm advising them to do. This is just something that me as a person is telling them that I think, right? And one of the things that comes up actually a pretty good bit is narcissism. And I have my own narcissism story, and I didn't really know what it was. And I had a date with a guy, and on our first date, I said to him, hey, what would your ex-wife say about you? And he said that I'm an arrogant, egotistical narcissist. And silly me said, when are we going to go out on our second date? No, I didn't say that. But I did continue to date him until, it turned into the typical narcissistic relationship. And now I know what it is. But Susan, for anybody who doesn't know, like I was at Caesar's Palace just this past weekend in Vegas, and they have a reflecting pool. And I said, oh, this is where Narcissus fell and, saw his reflection or whatever. So for those of us who don't know what narcissism is, because I didn't know, I thought, oh, he thinks a lot of himself, but I didn't really realize how dangerous and how distressing it can be to be involved with somebody who's got a narcissistic personality disorder or has narcissistic tendencies. So Susan, just tell us what that is.
A little bit about it. It's someone who loves themselves so much, their words, their opinion, their values, their views, that anything you do or say is of no consequence, no meaning, no value, and they will diminish everything you say. You personally, they will attack you on a physical level, a verbal level. They will attack you every way they can. They're also, interestingly, serial cheaters, because they have to have a constant, what's the word? People looking up to them and supply, if you want to call it that. But it's also this ego, what do you call it? Ego boosting that they have to have all the time. It's a constant need of theirs. So that's a narcissist. And they are sometimes easy to capture in the beginning, but usually the first sign of a narcissist is the guy who falls in love with you immediately.
And it's so, it feels so good to be loved, and so when you're getting that attention, and Allison, have you ever dealt with narcissists? I know you have. I know you have. And tell us about your experience with narcissism, Allison.
Well, mine is a little bit different because it's not to do with a romantic relationship. My narcissism story is the relationship I had with my mother. And as you say, Susan, it was so subtle that it kept me foxed for 45 years.
Kept
I
you what?
really foxed. I really had no idea. I was completely in the dark to it. In fact, my mother was my heroine. I did everything to be just like her. I believed everything she said. I believed that she had the worst life ever, that my job in life was to make her life as good as possible, to put her needs first. I'm not saying I didn't think about myself, because outside of her I did, but my whole focus with her was everything that she needed to be happy. And I didn't realize until I started working on myself, until I started taking care of me and putting my needs, first, that there was a problem, because everyone else round about me sort of championed me. My husband jumped up and down and said, yes, I love you like this. And friends started saying, God, it's great to see the confidence in you. And my mum started pushing me and pushing me and pushing me. And and every time I fought back, she'd be nasty, she'd be rude, she'd cut me off. She told other people lies about me, and I couldn't understand it. But it became, and then again, I came across somebody who used the word narcissist. I'd heard it before, and this time it just kind of clicked. So I went off to read about it, and I thought, yeah, that's it. That is exactly it. That's how it's always been. But because it's one of those words, and I think that's the thing that you were alluding to, Lee, it's one of those words that we hear, and it's so often thrown about nowadays that it's kind of lost its meaning. Anyone that treats us a little bit badly, any boyfriend that doesn't call exactly when he should call, anyone that doesn't turn up with flowers on a second date, we call them a narcissist.
I think they will show up with flowers the second day. In fact, my narcissist sent me flowers on our second date. On our second day, he sent me a bouquet of flowers.
Oh, well, in which case I'm wrong.
One of the things that they do really, really well is devalue you. They're crazy makers. They make you start to believe you're crazy, like you were saying, that and you work 10 times harder than you should have to make this person like you and value you and accept you and love you in the way that you want to be loved, but they don't have it in them. You're just kind of spinning in a hamster wheel, so to speak. And when you think you're making progress, they push you back. And you have no life of your own with a narcissist, none, because you get caught in the trap of wanting to please them, and it becomes 24/7. I need to please him. I need to figure this out. I need to fix him. I need to help him. And you lose sight of you.
Yeah. And so there's a couple of different pieces to this, because first there's that charming, and so Allison's talking about her mom, obviously female. Susan and I are talking about men, but narcissists come in both sexes. They come in both sexes. And so, if you're in a narcissistic relationship, and you're down the road a little bit, like first it's that super charming, right? That super charming. Well, what are some other things? Charming, fall in love with you. What are some other things that kind of hook you, Susan?
Well, in my relationship that ultimately turned violent and I had to run for my life, started with the classic symptoms. The love, like I just thought he loved me right from the beginning. And of course, there's holding on to you. Everywhere you go, they're attached to you in some way, moving you through crowds, doing this stuff. And you think it's because they love you and want to protect you and so on and so forth. The next thing he did was isolation. Now, that's a big, huge thing for narcissists. They have to get you away, especially in a romantic relationship, from friends and family, because they can't have outside influences. So I was a single mom with 2 little girls, and I came home from work one day and he said, I lived in Toronto, and he said, I bought us a house so the girls can have a backyard and bikes and freedom out 2.5 hours away from Toronto.
Wow.
Without discussing it with you.
Yeah. Well, because giving me a house for my children was like the biggest gift. And that's the trick. When you come back out at them, this is the next thing they do. They start to they internalize and say, how can you be mean to me? I was just doing something nice for you. Why are you yelling at me? I'm the good one here. I bought you a house. So then you think to yourself, oh, crap. Like he was
a very nice person. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Then you start to feel bad. Then you try to justify their behavior and find fault with yourself. It's exactly that part.
You feel so guilty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You feel so guilty for questioning their motives and questioning the spirit in which they did this. And then you feel ashamed that you even thought that way.
Yep.
We're all nodding. We've all been there.
So sad. It's really, I mean, the thing is that I didn't realize until after, so my father had died, and I had asked the guy I was dating to just give me some time and space away from the relationship, because he was very, at the first, he was so into me. He would text me every hour practically and be like, sorry, you haven't heard from me. And I was like, what do you mean? You just texted me an hour ago, constantly telling me where he was, updating me on his day, asking, really, really, really super into me. And then as the months went by, heard from him less, couldn't go to his house on the weekends, couldn't go to his house, never called me back. Never, not one time did he call me on the phone. Never would talk to me. If I called him, he wouldn't call me back. He probably had a whole nother life, I'm thinking, but I didn't know, because I didn't realize what was happening. And then my father died, and I said, I just feel really emotional. And he said, I don't like to be jerked around. And I thought, what? And I just poured my heart out about, my father dying and all the emotions I'd gone through. And his response was, I don't like to be jerked around. And I thought, wait a minute, this can't be normal. And it seemed so polar opposite to the man he had been pretending to be. And that was what I said, okay, this isn't right. And I don't even know why, but I started actually looking at narcissism and realizing that it was like a classic narcissistic relationship. I mean, it was absolutely 100% classic. And I hadn't seen it, and I was fortunate enough that it was only 4 months in, and I didn't get so firmly entrenched, because they do really suck you in.
Well, yeah, because after we moved out of town, then the next thing was to get me married to him, and have a baby. These were all, and I didn't want any more children. I was having trouble with the two I had. I didn't want, that was enough for me. But this was a big deal for him. But I recognized afterwards, that's how they really, really get you pinned down to them. Because if they get you to have a baby, you're more and more reliant on them. There's this question of taking away the father from the child. Yeah. So now you have guilt and shame associated with that. So this whole game that they play is very premeditated. It's
tons of guilt. Tons of guilting.
Tons of it. When I finally agreed to marry him, and fortunately for me, I did get out. But when I married him, we were coming out of a very fancy hotel in Toronto after our wedding night, coming up the ramp out of the underground parking lot, and he grabbed my hand and he squeezed it quite hard. And he said, now that you're my wife, you're going to do as you're told, how you're told, and when you're told.
Wow.
And I thought he was joking. I sort of went, ha, 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 ha. And things just escalated. I did. I was like, oh, that's so funny.
He was like, the joke's on her.
Oh, yeah. He's like, wait till you see what's coming now, honey, babe. So, it just escalated from there.
So so ultra charming. And also I found that suddenly he was interested in all the things I was interested in. I was his soulmate, and he was sending, he was buying me gifts and everything that I did. Suddenly he was reading Infinite Possibilities, which is the work of Mike Dooley, which is, I'm a trained startup, suddenly he was listening to Deepak and Oprah, and he was talking about, the law of attraction. He totally, I was like, this guy is my soulmate. So you've got that too soon, right? Too much too soon, right? So that's kind of the first thing, that if you're in that relationship when it seems too good to be true, sadly, it probably is. That's unfortunate. But if it, because I do believe in love and romance and all of those things, but when that person, so that's like the number one thing. And then the next stage, it seems like, is they start, as Susan said, and Allison, they start kind of twisting around some way and devaluing. So what are some examples, just in case I think that's pretty obvious, devaluing, but what are some examples of devaluation? Allison or Susan, anybody, which one?
For me, it's that question, almost gaslighting, if you like, you know, where something seems so black and white, it's so clear, and they actually deny it. You know, it's there in front of you, it's undeniable, and they deny it, but they deny it in such a way that you actually begin to question yourself and question what's obvious. And, you know, but we all have that. That's something that I wanted to go on to, because we all have that tendency you know, at some point or another. So there's the narcissist that Susan's talking about, and then there's also just bad behavior that we kind of fall into, you know, when we don't want to face up to something, or when, you know, when things aren't going our way. We can all use that technique where we just deny what's happening around about us. So that was something I wanted to ask you, Susan. How can you tell the difference? Because I see this a lot with my clients. They all come in like, I'm married to a narcissist, I need out now.
I hear it a lot too.
And I'm like, you know, yeah. And then we start working on it, and it's not narcissism at all. It's nothing like narcissism. It's just bad behavior, bad patterns of communication, probably right from the very start. So how do you identify what the line is?
I think that this word narcissism is getting thrown around way too much now. And women and men, some men, are using it as an excuse to justify their spouse's just bad behavior, or to justify their complaining about their spouse's bad behavior. So to me, to get to that, I ask them questions about the pattern. So if it's happening, once a week, he goes off the rails. He gaslights you, if you want to call it that. It's just that one time. And then he's good for a whole month and nothing else happens that's narcissistic. He's not denying you the ability to go out with your friends. He's not asking you to sit beside him on the couch every 5 minutes. He goes to work and doesn't text you every 5 minutes. Where are you? What are you doing? You have to be home at a certain time. Not narcissism. Just a bad night at home.
Yeah.
There's a difference. The key difference to them is when you're with a real narcissist, when you're in a narcissistically abusive relationship, you feel tense every moment of the day because you do not know what's going to happen. So when you're looking at your phone and you know he's coming home in 5 minutes, you start to escalate the stress. You don't know what mood he's going to come in. You don't know what he's going to accuse you of. You don't even know if he's going to come home. You get the kids to be quiet. You do all of these things because you want him not to react to anything. You want him just to have this perfect little family. Yeah. So, but if you're not feeling that 24/7, if you're not feeling you have to check in with this person all the time, if you're not feeling you have to be accountable to this person, and you're not being put down, because put downs are the big key to what they do, and some of them are vicious, nasty put downs, or you have nights where he just doesn't come home and feels he doesn't need to explain that to you, you're not in a truly narcissistic relationship. You're just in a bad relationship.
Yeah, and I think I would say that if there's a lot of give and take, then it's not narcissistic. Because in a narcissistic relationship, there's no give and take. There's only take. There's only, there's only, and again, I guess, I mean, I got really lucky, even though I know that the guy I was dating was absolutely a narcissist. And he actually had told me that his mother had narcissistic personality disorder. Hello.
I'm so naive.
I know. I'm so naive. I had no idea, right? We didn't get to that point, and actually he probably, like I said, had another whole relationship somewhere else. But there's just, it was always what he said was right. I mean, he would listen to me, but I was not right. He wouldn't concede that what I was saying was, I mean, it was like everything I said, he would twist around until it was his viewpoint. So, I would say in a relationship, if there's a give and take, that there's not, and he would put everybody else down. He put down my friend. Oh, yeah. He would say that they're using me, or they're not this, or they're that, or you shouldn't be around them, because I think he wanted to be the person that I always went to or listened to or whatever. So
that's part of the isolation pattern. is they will start to make you believe that your friends and family are just real dirtbags.
And he's the only thing that I can turn to.
I've just really remembered as you're talking, my sister years ago was in exactly that situation. She was just slowly but surely removed from the family by this guy, to the point that one day she just disappeared. And I literally searched the country.
Did you find her?
I eventually found her. I had to go in a car, help her climb through a second story window and run away. I mean, he had her locked in the house.
Wow.
Yeah. And when we met this guy, my poor sister, when we met this guy, we were like, well, he's not a great, let's hope she doesn't marry him. But, he's not that bad. But he was in the background, playing with her, making her think that she wasn't loved at home, that she had nothing at home, that he was the only one that could look after her, that it was all about him. He would give her everything. We were trying to do her harm. And, she was pulling away more and more and more, to the point that she didn't have anywhere else to turn except him. So, of course, when he offered to take her away to God knows where, in the middle of nowhere, she had no choice but to say yes, because she was so convinced that what she had back at home was worthless and wasn't real and wasn't love and wasn't healthy. It was pretty terrifying when I think back on it. I hadn't thought about that for years and years.
Horrible, but that's so classic, because they do make you think that you aren't even capable of picking your friends or noticing these things. You're so stupid that you don't know what a good friend is. So you start questioning everybody you talk to. Oh, are they out to get me? I don't want to be friends with you. I can't be friends with you. I'm not good at making friends,
Yeah, but at the same time, it was constantly, and I will say that I've read that that narcissistic personalities really love the empath, and they love the person who is caring and generous and kind, and they play on that because we naturally want to make people feel good, and so I think that I was probably I just constantly tried to make him feel good, and he did that for me too until he got me, and then it was like then he started saying just making stuff up. And I was like, I didn't say that. I mean, I would say, what are you talking about? And I would ask my assistant, Tiffany, I was like, he said that I said this. I know I didn't say this. Because it makes you think you're crazy. You think you're crazy. I was like, what is he?
Crazy makers.
Yeah. I would be like replaying it all in my head, trying to figure out how did that even come from that?
How does it translate from what I said to his understanding?
Exactly. So I guess that's another way to spot the, the crazy making, or they can turn things around on you where you're confused about your own, opinion or your own ideas. You start questioning yourself. And then when you guys both have mentioned danger. I mean, so Susan, do narcissistic relationships turn violent, or is that kind of I guess it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to, and a lot of them don't. A lot of them just stay in that sort of crazy making pattern where she becomes so weak and unsure of herself and uncertain that she will never leave. So he has what he wants. He has exactly what he wants, and he can go and do whatever he wants, because she's never going to step up or vocalize what she wants or needs or whatnot. The ones who turn violent they were violent in the beginning.
Yeah.
He was an abusive man to begin with, a physically abusive man to begin with. But what I have noticed in the work that I've done with myself and with clients is those who are attracted to narcissists in that instant when they love you so much, there's something within us that is not fulfilled.
Oh, I need to just put my head down.
For me, it was abandonment issues. So somebody comes along and they're big and strong and have blue eyes and they give you a big hug and they're going to take care of you. It was meltdown. It was, take me away. It's like, but until I healed that, I was still susceptible and vulnerable to that kind of behavior. Now I'm not. So I would tell them to go pound salt.
Go do what?
Oh, you've never heard that expression?
No, what did you say?
go pound salt.
I've never heard that expression. What does that mean?
It's a Canadian expression from the salt mines, and it's get a hammer and just repeatedly pound the salt, because
just go pound some salt.
Yeah, just go and do it, like, yeah. Like,
for some reason, it doesn't sound all that dismissive. It sounds like, I don't know.
Yeah, no,
we want something strong. I'm going to say that today.
But what you were saying, Susan, is exactly, and that's, you know, where you and I cross over in our work is, you know, what we do is we take women from that place of, you know, low self-worth, low self-esteem, and build them into, you know, into that confidence, that self-confidence, not the overconfidence, but the self-confidence that knows what she deserves, and is able to put the boundaries in place that stop people, you know, that make you unattractive to a narcissist apart from anything else. You know, if they spot that weakness in you. So tell us a little bit about how you work with women to build that resilience up, that self-esteem up.
The very first thing I tell my clients, and I want everybody to understand this message. Confidence is not a mystery. Confidence has one thing. It is the memory of success. That's all it is. It's that simple. So I can feel unconfident right now, no confidence, non-confident right now. If somebody said to me, if Allison said, hey, let's go jump out of an airplane, let's go parachuting. Well, my confidence would be at the bottom, because it'd be like, oh, I've never done that before. And I would be totally fearful. Then we go up. I
promise I'm not going to do that.
We go up in the airplane and jump out, and it's a great success. Now where's my confidence? It's way up here. So the next person who asks me to go jump out of an airplane, I'm like, yeah, let's do this. So I get my clients to start with, yeah, well, it's true. That's what confidence is. Everybody thinks confidence is a huge mystery thing. It's just it's an accumulation of success.
That makes sense. I like that. Yeah.
So I start my clients right there. They start with success journals, not gratitude journals, success journals.
Nice.
Every small little, I don't care how insignificant you might think it is, if you did it successfully, write it down and celebrate that. Give yourself a pat on the back and say, yeah, look at me. It doesn't matter if it's you went out past your curfew with your narcissist. That's a success. You faced the music and you did that. Or the big one is having the courage to leave. Celebrating that is the biggest success you're going to have. The rest are going to be very small. Applying for the job, you applied for it, you did your resume. Celebrate that. Every time you celebrate your success, your confidence starts to come up. And then I get them to do 100 things they want in a man in a relationship. It has to be 100, which all my clients look at me and they go, 100.
100. That sounds like a lot.
Oh, but then we break it down into the 5 that are absolutely non-negotiable. And that's where you start to build boundaries.
Yeah, like mine would be must love dogs. Yeah, and in fact, they'll tell, but the narcissist will tell you whatever you want to hear.
Yeah.
Because all they want to do is, so the guy told me I would love to have a farm. Later, I found out that he didn't want the dogs. I have 4 dogs. He didn't like the dogs. You know, he didn't want them around him because they had fur and all that.
He was allergic to animals, but he wanted the farm.
He's allergic to animals, but he says, I want a farm, you know, because I want a farm. So it's, you know, but yeah, sorry to interrupt. I got off on a tangent.
That's okay. It's okay. But it's where you start to set boundaries. So if you know what you want and you know what you value in a relationship, then you can see through some of these things. And you start to heal, and it has to be done. You have to heal that child wound, that thing from the past that is causing you to feel like Swiss cheese. And I always equate it with that until you
don't talk to me about cheese.
What?
Yeah. When you mention cheese, my ears perk right up.
Yeah, me too.
But don't
I haven't had breakfast. Cheese.
Don't be like Swiss cheese. What does that mean?
It means there's little holes in us that we're not fulfilling on our own.
Here I go.
I want women to fulfill their lives on their own, so that when they meet somebody, they're not looking for somebody to fill a gap or a hole in their being. They're already full. Their life is full. They've got all of these things. So what they're looking for is somebody to co-create with, co-create other things. So this stops all of those things from happening, because you can kind of read through them and you go, yeah, no, I don't love you in 5 minutes. So it's, it's not going to work. Also, when you're fulfilled and you're whole, you can walk away.
Which is why, Lee, you got, within a very short time, you understood what was happening. It wasn't, you weren't 6 years into it. You've done all that work. So yeah, it's very flattering at the beginning. Of course it's flattering, whether you
Yep.
no self-confidence at all, or whether you're exuding self-confidence and your life's brimming over. If somebody shows that amount of attention, of course you're drawn in. It's how quickly you see through it. So it's not, we're all human. We like to be flattered. We like to be loved. That doesn't make us weak. It doesn't make us wrong. So, it's how quickly you can say, wait a minute. And that's where the intuition part is. And that was something that you talked about, for instance, right from the very beginning with this guy. There was always something that you couldn't quite put your finger on. And that's, and we all have that. I'm sure, Susan, if you go back and you take yourself back to the very beginning of the relationship, there was something that you just didn't feel comfortable with, that you pushed down, you ignored, because actually he was giving you what you thought you needed. So, and that's
such an important point, because it actually, in my book and in my work with clients, I talk very much about the conscious voice and the gut voice that we suppress all the time, because our conscious voice is our should life. And we go through this, I should, and guilt and shame are all part of that. And we let that voice dictate what we're going to do instead of listening to this.
Yeah.
My daughter, when I married my massive abusive husband, she cried that day and she pleaded with me not to marry him. Pleaded with me. And I thought she was just a little girl. But her intuition as a youngster was, kids listen to their intuition and their imagination much easier than we do. Life kind of gets in the way of that. If I had to really listen to her and my gut, it wouldn't have happened the way it did.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you don't, this is something somebody told me, and not only is this not legal advice, for me, it's not relationship advice, because that's really not my forte at this point in my life. But is that if you don't feel good, if you're in a relationship and you don't feel good, then it's not the right relationship. Relationships are meant to feel good, to be fulfilling, to make you feel happier, not to make you feel doubtful or guilty or, ashamed. And for me, thank you, Allison, for saying that I didn't let it go, because he was trying to say, how can you give up this relationship? This is a relationship born of the ages. I mean, he sent me this 3-page long email, just pouring his heart out. Please don't end this relationship. And ultimately, I was just like, I have to have some time away from you and from this. And that's when he was like, don't jerk me around. Blah. I'm like, what? What are you saying? But before that, it was just this desperate, all this email. And my friends that read it were like, Lee, this is not even real. This is just, it was so over the top. It was like, it was crazy. It was so over the top, and so I did end it, but it was tough though. Even after only 4 months, it really did, damage to me, even in such a short time. And so I can't really imagine how people who have been in a narcissistic relationship for a long time,
it's not, I have women who come to me all the time and say, I love him. I really, really love him. And I say to them, not necessarily you love the idea of him.
Yep.
The idea of him, the ideal of him. Him as he is right now, probably not, if we really broke it down. But you love the idea that if you could fix him, if you could fix all the broken pieces and you could make him into this great person, that's what you love. That doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's ultimately what I had to tell myself, is that the person that I met at the beginning, who was so amazing, was not the real person, and a lady came in to see me a couple of weeks ago, and she'd already been working with a therapist for a few years, but she said I was in a narcissistic relationship. And she said that when she had her baby in the hospital, having the baby, after she had the baby, the guy said, "Oh, I can't be on the birth certificate because I'm still married to somebody else." And she was, and the nurse, can you imagine? Here's the nurse with the birth certificate, and here's the man that you're engaged to, and suddenly tells you he's married to somebody else. But she stayed with him, and she ended up, and this has been, much later, but she stayed in the relationship. I mean, and she said she's been in therapy for 1.5 years. And her child's like 4 or 5 now, because she said it just broke her completely. So go ahead.
When my relationship, when I ran for my life to the police station and he followed and all that kind of stuff, the police came and barricaded my house and told me, don't answer the door and don't bail him out because we're going to charge him and so on. Because he actually assaulted a police officer, a woman police officer coming in. Well, because they don't feel they're doing anything wrong. So to them, this is, whatever. Anyway, the next day, this is true as I sit here. I'm sitting having my coffee, and that police knock on your door? Boom, boom, boom. And I go to the door, and the same cop who barricaded my house is standing there, and he said, "I told you not to come and bail him out." I didn't. And then we both realized that in that nanosecond that his girlfriend came to bail him out.
Oh.
The officer felt so bad. He said, "I swear she's your twin."
Wow.
So I found out in that short time, because we got married in October and that I ran in February, just after Valentine's Day, that he had a girlfriend all along, and she was actually pregnant.
Unbelievable. Jeez. So we've talked about how to spot narcissism or narcissistic relationships. So we have a couple of tips on confidence building, success building, but how do you get out of that relationship?
How do you get out?
Yeah.
You step into that place of courage and you leave. And narcissists are typically 99% of them are not violent. They're going to use all of the psychological things that they can use on you to keep you there. And think about it from their perspective. They've got you trained. They've got you where they want you. They can cheat on you. They can have another girlfriend. They can do whatever they want. And you're never going to say boo squat.
You're not going to say what? I'm loving the Canadian colloquialism. You're not going to say what?
Boo squat.
What's that?
Well, boo, as in Halloween, boo, and squat means nothing in Canada.
Okay. Diddly squat, we say.
Squat.
Okay.
Squat.
You're never going to say anything.
You're not going to say boo squat. I've got a whole.
I'll translate via Scotland. I'll translate for you.
Well, We're kind of from Scotland and came here, so I think we have some of the stuff. So anyway, you're not going to say anything. You're not going to reprimand them. So he's got the best life in the world. And if you just sit back and recognize that you are helping to co-create this perfect life for him by not standing up for yourself, you start to recognize that you have to take back your power and your value and step into that courage and leave. And are you going to cry? You betcha. Are you going to be angry? You betcha. But as time goes on, you're going to heal and you're going to start to see what else is possible for you. It's not about leaving and being stoic and never crying and saying, "Oh, well, it was a bad part of my life." Yeah, you're probably going to have a breakdown because a narcissist treats you like a goddess on the outside.
Yeah.
But on the inside, they're destroying you.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, so when I was dating the guy, I couldn't ask for, if I asked for what I wanted, like he was really, like after the beginning would really push me away. And it was like he had to work all the time and he started a new job and it was too hard. And finally it was to the point where he couldn't find 30 minutes to 45 minutes a month to spend with me. And if I complained about it, then he would, like I would tell the people in the office, well, I want to ask him if we can go to lunch today, but I'm afraid to. I'm afraid of I'm afraid of what he's going to say or how he's going to react. So it was this constant every week, Am I going to see him this week? Am I not going to see him this week? And when I finally pushed back and said, I have to have more than this in the relationship, that's when I guess he saw that it wasn't going to go the way he wanted, because I think we just want to hold on to that elusive feeling, that feeling of adoration, that feeling of, love, or all that they give you in the beginning. You want to hold on to that. So you keep doing what they want you to do, but you may never get that back, because that's not who they really are.
No, that's just an actor at the beginning of the play.
Oh, so sad. And so, if you're in that relationship that you don't have any choices and you don't have a voice, and if you say you can't disagree, you can't have your own, you can't have your own opinion. You can't, you feel afraid to share your thoughts, your feelings, whether it's narcissistic or not, it's not a good relationship. I mean, it's, whether you're a man or a woman, I mean, that's not the kind of relationship you want to be in. You want to be in a relationship that you can have give and take, that, like I said before, that you can have a choice. And so, Susan, how do you work with people that, I was going to refer you to that woman the other day, and I actually gave her your name, but she said, well, I've been working with somebody for 1.5 years already. And I'm like, oh, wow. I wish that I could have referred you to Susan first. But anyway, she said, I've already got somebody. I've got somebody, I've been working with them for a really long time because I was so messed up. And, but how do you work with people that want to leave or,
depending on where they, pardon me?
Or have left and are feeling that pain and need help?
I start off, I have like a foundational toolkit that I share with them. And the very first thing that we do is we go through an exercise that I call RAW, which is rage and weep, because they need to get that out. It's been suppressed for so long, and they're so confused about what they're feeling that to actually get mad at him is a struggle, because they don't want to get mad at him. To actually cry for what they've given up is a struggle for them. So we start there. And we start with journaling about what came out, what thoughts came out. Now, a lot of women get stuck in the revenge scenario, so we work through that. They get angry. They want to have revenge, so we have to step through that, because it's really not a healthy place to be. But I start them off by letting them know all of your emotions that you've been suppressing need to come out, because getting to that place of letting go begins there. And you need to, and if you want to yell at me, if you want to tell me off, go for it. But you need to let that out. So that's where we start. And then we start with success journaling, because I want them to recognize that every day of their life, whether they're going to the grocery store on their own, providing for their children, cooking the meals, doing all of those things, filling out the rental application for a brand new home. These are all successes, and that's for their confidence to build that. And then we start to talk about value, their personal net worth, what their value is to themselves. And that is where the real energy and movement starts to come. That's where you find out what happened in their childhood, where they start to open up about things. And sometimes it's an aha moment. And there's no blaming your parents. This is not going back to your parents and saying, oh, you nasty people, you did this to me. Because a lot of times it's done inadvertently. It's not even done on purpose. It's done inadvertently. I had a client just recently who was the oldest daughter, and her little brother was born severely disabled. So her mother's attention was taken for that child. And of course, in that day and age, father didn't really get involved in children's lives. And she was told by her mom constantly, be quiet, your brother's sleeping. And of course, her mother was exhausted with this disabled brother. Wow. So she lost her voice. So she continuously gets into bad relationships, because as soon as somebody says to her, be quiet, she models being a child.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
So it's not that,
go ahead.
It's not that her mother did it on purpose. It was circumstances that led to that. So we model that behavior that we've been taught.
Yeah. So Susan, how can people find you if they want to know more, or they want to work on their relationship issues?
They can find me at www.susanball.ca, or on Facebook. I have a group called Free from Toxic Love, and I have a Facebook page. So yeah, join me.
And Allison, where can people find you?
They can find me here every Tuesday with you. Apart from that, you can find me at AllisonReiner.com or on PPC. I've got a Facebook group which is Loved Again and Forever, slightly from the other side, but yeah, we work through exactly the same scenarios as Susan. But when you were talking, Susan, I had this vision when I was told that I had to write all my hurt and all my anger and all my resentments. I could not think of one. I couldn't think of one. I spent months. I kept going and checking the dictionary to find out what the word resentment meant, and it didn't mean anything to me, because every time I felt that, I would make a justification. I would say, oh, poor mum, because. So every time I had that feeling coming up, I found an excuse for her, and it took me such a long time to get it. Of course, when it does, it's like a volcano, but it's difficult even to unplug that, because we push it down so firmly. So yeah, that came up for me. I thought I'd share before we go. We've run over ages today.
Yeah, I know. There's lots to talk about, because
I'll have to come back.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. So
I'm going to be doing weekly lives talking about all of this stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So you can find us all on Project Positive Change. And thank you guys for being here today. And I'm going to try not to feel too ashamed. Oh, no, I'm kidding. I'm not going to pound any salts. I love that.
Well, are you going to do
boo squatting? I've learned some stuff today. And then Allison said something earlier that, what did you say, Allison?
Foxed. She was foxed.
She was foxed. I was like, what the heck is fox mean? I love foxes. Anyway, so you can just come back. We'll be here next Tuesday. I'm not sure who our guest is next Tuesday, but we'll be back.
Next Tuesday, we've got Josie again. We're talking about getting prepared for
the holidays.
For the holidays.
Yeah. Getting prepared for the holidays. That's a good one. Yeah. So thank you so much, Susan, Allison. You guys have a good day.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.